that, Professor Indrani Bhaduri ma'am is with her. She has also joined, and we request her to wait for 10 to 15 minutes, because the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports has requested us to give this platform so that they can propagate their program. And that fitness, we all know that Nipun Bharat mission ka one of the aim is, the first goal is health and well-being of the children. So fitness is sports in school education is again very important aspect. This is going to feed into this Nipun Bharat mission, so it is very much linked to what we are doing. So he likes to give a brief introduction of what kind of activities are going to be held in future, and you all should also know it and be a part of it. So on the behalf of the Ministry of Education, I welcome Shri Pradeep Kumar ji. He's a deputy director for the Sports Authority of India, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. So Pradeep ji, without wasting time, I request you to please start. You have already shared your PowerPoint presentation. That is only 5 slides.
से शेयर कर ही दिया है कि ये जो है मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा आप लोगों का टाइम ना लेते हुए मैं सिर्फ फोकस करूंगा, और मैं सबसे पहले आपको अपनी बात रखने के लिए मैं पीपीटी और पीपीटी के साथ में मेरे प्रोमो वीडियोस हैं, बहुत छोटे-छोटे वीडियोस हैं, वो जो हेल्प करेंगे आप लोगों को और समझने में और मुझे बताने में, मुझे अपनी चीज़ों को एक्सप्लेन करने में। जैसा का मेरे पीपीटी के माध्यम से मैं सिर्फ 4 चीज़ों पे फोकस करूँगा। जो मेरा पहला पॉइंट है, वो फिट इंडिया क्विज़। फिट इंडिया क्विज़ जो है, सेकंड जो पॉइंट रहेगा मेरा, फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप है। थर्ड वन इज़ फिट इंडिया स्कूल वीक, एंड फोर्थ वन इज़ खेलो इंडिया असेसमेंट फॉर स्कूल गोइंग चिल्ड्रन। क्योंकि हम सब लोग, मोस्टली सारे लोग एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट, एजुकेशन फील्ड से जुड़े हुए हैं, तो आई थिंक ये सारी चीज़ें पहले से ही बहुत सारे लोग अवेयर होंगे इन सब चीज़ों से। और जो कुछ ऐसे भी लोग होंगे जो नए जुड़े होंगे इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से या एजुकेशन सेक्टर से या एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट से, तो उनके लिए फर्स्ट टाइम हो सकता है। फर्स्ट जो अभी फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन जो है, फर्स्ट एडिशन जो हमारा लॉन्च हुआ था लास्ट ईयर 2021 में, ये बहुत ही सक्सेसफुल रहा था। सक्सेसफुल इस वे में भी रहा है कि इसमें टोटल लगभग 37,000 पार्टिसिपेंट थे अक्रॉस द इंडिया, और लगभग 13,500 स्कूल्स ने पार्टिसिपेट किया था इस फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन में। अब मेरा आप लोगों से एक रिक्वेस्ट है, क्योंकि हमने सेकंड कंटिन्यूशन में ये सेकंड फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन लॉन्च कर दिया है। लॉन्च किया था our honorable education minister श्री धर्मेंद्र प्रधान जी ने 29th ऑफ अगस्त। एज ऑल अवेयर कि 29th ऑफ अगस्त जो है नेशनल स्पोर्ट्स डे के रूप में सेलिब्रेट किया जाता है। तो सर ने बीइंग एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर होते हुए स्पोर्ट्स डे पे ही इसको प्रायोरिटी दी है, क्योंकि फिट इंडिया क्विज है और स्पोर्ट्स डे का ओकेजन था, तो सर ने 29th अगस्त को इसके सेकंड एडिशन को लॉन्च किया है। रजिस्ट्रेशन इसके 3 सितंबर 2022 से स्टार्ट हो गए थे, और इसकी लास्ट डेट थी 15 अक्टूबर 2022। ड्यू टू सम रीजन, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोगों के हमारे पास में मैसेजेस आ रहे थे और ईमेल्स आ रहे थे, जिसके द्वारा उन लोगों की रिक्वेस्ट थी कि उनके यहाँ पे बहुत सारे लोग और भी ऐसे हैं, स्कूल्स हैं, बच्चे हैं जो पार्टिसिपेट करना चाह रहे हैं। तो इस चीज को हमने कंसीडर करते हुए इसकी लास्ट डेट जो है 1 महीने मतलब 15 नवंबर तक एक्सटेंड की गई है, 15 नवंबर 2022 तक। इसमें फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन में सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट रोल जो रहता है वो पी टीचर्स का रहता है। पी टीचर्स के लिए एक बड़ा ही अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है, जो कि ये अपने बच्चों को क्या टीच करते हैं, कैसे टीच करते हैं, और अगर वो बच्चे बहुत अच्छा एक्सेल करते हैं आके इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे, तो स्कूल को रिकग्निशन मिलता है, बच्चों को मिलता है और इनके टीचर्स को। तो फर्स्ट जो है फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन था, जिसके लिए मैंने बताया, आप लोगों से शेयर किया। इसमें हमने जो है 3.25 करोड़ रुपीस वेरियस स्टेजेस पे कैश प्राइज मनी रखी है। कैश प्राइज मनी का एक मोटिव है कि जो बच्चे इसमें जो है ना जो पार्टिसिपेंट होंगे, स्टूडेंट्स होंगे, उनको उनको कैश प्राइज मिलेगी उन्हें मोटिवेट करने के लिए, और जो स्कूल को जो कैश प्राइज मिलेगी वो स्पोर्ट्स का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलप करने के लिए हेल्प होगी। वेरियस स्कूल्स में जो भी इसमें वेरियस स्टेज में रनर विनर ये फर्स्ट सेकंड थर्ड फोर्थ प्लेस तक लाते हैं। ये एक बहुत ही अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है फिट इंडिया क्विज का। ये बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है। इंडिया में ये पहला ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म है जिसमें फिटनेस और स्पोर्ट्स से रिलेटेड ये क्विज किया जाता है, और अपने आप को जो फिटनेस और स्पोर्ट्स से कंसर्न बच्चे हैं, वो अपने आप को इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे आके प्रूव कर सकते हैं, शो कर सकते हैं कि हाँ, हम लोगों का ये लेवल है। अब मैं प्रोमो वीडियो के माध्यम से आपको शो करूँ। ये लास्ट ईयर का प्रोमो वीडियो था, ये आप लोगों को हेल्प करेगा, जो टीचर्स हैं उनको हेल्प करेगा, और सेम वीडियोस जो है हमारे उसमें यूट्यूब चैनल में भी अवेलेबल हैं। अगर बहुत सारी क्वेरीज ऐसी आती हैं कि हम सर किस तरीके के क्वेश्चंस होंगे, किस तरीके से हम बच्चों को प्रिपेयर कराएं, तो इस तरीके के हम अगर किसी को कुछ कंसर्न रिलेटेड कंटेंट मटेरियल चाहिए तो यूट्यूब वीडियो पे अवेलेबल है। सेकंड है फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप। जैसा कि आपने देखा फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप, ये एक ऐसा यूनिक फीचर है इसमें। जैसे बहुत सारे ऐप्स हैं जो हम अपने फिटनेस को असेस करने के लिए डाउनलोड करते हैं, तो बहुत सारे कहीं ना कहीं हमें पे करना पड़ रहा है, पेड ऐप्स होते हैं। ये फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट है, और ये एक ऐसा माध्यम है जो इंडिया के सारे नागरिकों को जोड़ने का एक कोशिश की जा रही है स्पोर्ट्स अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया के द्वारा, फिट इंडिया मूवमेंट के द्वारा, और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ यूथ अफेयर्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स के द्वारा, कि एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे भारत के सारे नागरिक अपने आप को रजिस्टर्ड कर सकें और इससे अपना फिजिकल फिटनेस को असेस कर सकें। ये जो ऐप है 2021 में लॉन्च किया गया था, और ऑनरेबल स्पोर्ट्स मिनिस्टर श्री अनुराग ठाकुर जी के द्वारा, और एज ऑन डेट आज तक इस पे लगभग 4,62,000 लोगों ने अपना रजिस्ट्रेशन इसे डाउनलोड किया, इस ऐप को अपने मोबाइल में डाउनलोड किया है। ये ऐप फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट है, इसमें कोई भी आपको चार्जेस नहीं देने हैं, और ये एकमात्र ऐसा ऐप है इंडिया का जो WHO के गाइडलाइंस के प्रोटोकॉल के बेस पे ऐप को बनाया गया है। तो मेरी सभी लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट है, इसमें कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि इसमें 5 ईयर से 18 ईयर और 18 से 65 और 65 से एवर, सभी लोग अपना फिटनेस टेस्ट, वेरियस कैटेगरीज बनी हुई हैं, तो सारे लोग इसमें अपना फिटनेस असेस कर सकते हैं। प्रोमो वीडियो इसका मैं शो करूंगा कि कैसे डाउनलोड करना है और कैसे ये वर्क करता है।
प्रेजेंटिंग फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप, आपका फिटनेस गाइड और पर्सनल हेल्थ ट्रेनर। पहली बार अब भारत का हर एक नागरिक अपना फिटनेस स्कोर पता करके जान पाएगा कि वो कितना फिट है। आप अपनी आयु के अनुसार अपने फिटनेस स्कोर की जांच कर सकते हैं। ये सुविधा खास आपके लिए पहली बार शुरू की जा रही है। ये ऐप आपके फिटनेस रूटीन को ट्रैक कर सारा डेटा स्टोर करता है, ताकि आप अपनी प्रोग्रेस देख सकें और फिट रहने के नए और आसान नुस्खे अपना पाएं। इस ऐप के साथ आप बन सकते हैं खुद के फिटनेस मास्टर। उसके बाद हम आपके फिटनेस रूटीन को बनाने में आपकी मदद करेंगे, और सबसे अच्छी बात है कि इन सारी सुविधाओं का लाभ आप पा सकते हैं एकदम फ्री। बस अपने एंड्रॉइड और एप्पल डिवाइस पर हमारे ऐप का हिंदी और इंग्लिश वर्जन डाउनलोड करें और शुरू हो जाइए। आपका फिट रहने का सपना अब है एक क्लिक दूर।
फिटनेस की डोज आधा घंटा रोज।
थर्ड इज फिट इंडिया स्कूल वीक। जैसे ये थर्ड फिट इंडिया स्कूल वीक जो है, इसका हमने एक 15 नवंबर से 15 दिसंबर तक का ड्यूरेशन रखा है। इसमें सभी स्कूल स्वतंत्र हैं, फ्री हैं। उन्हें इस वीक में इस मंथ में 15 नवंबर से 15 दिसंबर तक कोई भी एक वीक अपने सहूलियत के हिसाब से, अपने सूटेबिलिटी के हिसाब से सेलेक्ट करना है और इसमें अपने सारे बच्चों के लिए वेरियस फिजिकल रिलेटेड एक्टिविटीज को कंडक्ट कराना है। इसकी थीम में भी कि स्पोर्ट्स से रिलेटेड थीम, चाहे पेंटिंग हो, चाहे डिबेट कंपटीशन हो, चाहे गेम्स हो, चिल्ड्रंस, और इसमें सभी बच्चों से, क्योंकि जो मैंने स्टार्टिंग में ही कहा कि सभी बच्चों को मतलब ग्रास रूट लेवल पे काम करने के लिए जब हम छोटे बच्चों से इस तरीके की फिजिकल एक्टिविटी स्टार्ट करेंगे, तभी ये धीरे-धीरे हमारे एनवायरनमेंट में और हमारे मतलब टीचर्स जिसमें इन्वॉल्व होंगे, हमारे बच्चों के पेरेंट्स इन्वॉल्व होंगे, तो एंटायर सोसाइटी में यही बच्चे एक पॉजिटिव मैसेज देंगे जो कि फिटनेस रिलेटेड अवेयरनेस से रिलेटेड होगा ये। एक स्कूल जो है इसमें अब जो भी स्कूल्स हैं वो मैंने नीचे वेबसाइट दी हुई है इसमें। अ, स्कूल जो है विजिट कर सकते हैं और अपने आप को रजिस्टर्ड करके जो स्कूल्स इस तरीके के फिटनेस वीक कंडक्ट करेंगे, वो अपने डाटा अपलोड करके और इससे सर्टिफिकेट जनरेट कर सकते हैं, जो कि उन्हें ये प्रूफ करता है कि हाँ, उन्होंने अपने यहाँ पे ये फिटनेस वीक को कंडक्ट कराया और अपने बच्चों के डाटा जो है इसमें अपलोड करने हैं। इसमें पीई टीचर्स और स्पेशली पी टीचर्स का इन्वॉल्वमेंट ज़्यादा रहता है, बट जो बहुत सारे आजकल ऐसे भी हैं जो एकेडमिक टीचर्स भी बहुत ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्व रहते हैं स्पोर्ट्स में। तो वो सब लोग, इन सभी लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट है कि इस तरीके की इवेंट्स को बढ़ाएँ, करें, जिससे कि एक पॉजिटिव स्पोर्ट्स को लेके, फिटनेस को लेके एक जागरूकता आए स्कूल्स में। फोर्थ वन इज़ खेलो इंडिया फिटनेस असेसमेंट फॉर स्कूल गोइंग चिल्ड्रन। ये एक ऐसा प्रोग्राम है हमारा जिसमें हम इसमें मेनली मैक्सिमम या इम्पोर्टेंट रोल रहता है फिजिकल एजुकेशन टीचर्स का। उनको हम लोग इस एक प्लेटफॉर्म से, एक सिंगल प्लेटफॉर्म से एसेस करने के लिए, जैसे सपोज वो एनुअल स्पोर्ट्स डे ऑलमोस्ट हर एक स्कूल में एवरी ईयर होता है। अगर किसी बच्चे का अगर एसेस करना है आपको कि किसी का 100 मीटर, 200 मीटर, 400 मीटर में क्या रिकॉर्ड है, उसमें अपना डाटा फीड कर सकता है। डाटा फीड करने के बाद में उसका किस जगह पे या किस उसमें हमें वर्क करना है, मतलब उसे इम्प्रूव करना है, उससे एसेस करने में ये हेल्प देता है। इसमें मेन जो रहता है फिजिकल एजुकेशन टीचर जो है एसएससी रहता है, और इसमें ये हमेशा अपनी प्रोग्रेस को कहीं पे भी चेक कर सकते हैं कि मेरे बच्चे का लास्ट ईयर का क्या रिकॉर्ड था, इस साल का क्या रिकॉर्ड है, और ये इसमें जो है सारे टीचर्स से अपने डाटा ये फिल करते हैं स्पोर्ट्स से रिलेटेड। और ये हमारे स्पोर्ट्स अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया के लिए भी एक अच्छा पहल है। इससे हम क्या करते हैं कि जो आपके यहाँ टैलेंटेड बच्चे हैं, उनका डाटा हम लेके और उनको हमारी वेरियस स्कीम्स हैं, खेलो इंडिया सेंटर्स हैं, एसएल केआईसी है, स्मॉल इंडिया खेलो सेंटर्स हैं, उसमें हम इन बच्चों को अडॉप्ट करते हैं, उन्हें प्रमोट करने के लिए उन्हें फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस भी करते हैं। और इसमें ये जो है ये फर्स्ट टू 12th क्लास के लिए है, सभी बच्चों के लिए, और हमने अलग-अलग वेरियस एज ग्रुप्स के हिसाब से इसमें स्लॉट दिए हुए हैं। इसमें हर बच्चे का आप लोग असेस कर सकते हैं कि किस बच्चे की क्या प्रोग्रेस है। अ, और इसमें जो है ना नीचे मैंने लिंक शेयर किया हुआ ऑलरेडी इसमें कि स्कूल जो है इनिशिएट करके फिजिकल असेसमेंट थ्रू पी टीचर्स जो है इसमें आके अपना रजिस्ट्रेशन कर सकते हैं और इसको अपना डाटा फीड कर सकते हैं। मैं मैम को देख रहा हूँ, मैं रितु मैम आ गई हैं शायद, मैंने भी अपने यहाँ पे टाइम लगा रखा था।
नहीं, नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। मैंने सोचा कहीं आप ऐसा ना सोच रहे हो कि मैं हूँ ही
नहीं, नहीं,
नहीं।
नहीं, नहीं, मैं
आप यू
मैम
कैरी
बस
ऑन।
हाँ, मुझे सभी लोगों से सिर्फ एक रिक्वेस्ट है थैंक यू करने से पहले, कि जो मैंने 3-4 चीज़ों के लिए आप लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट किया है या डाटा शेयर किया है, या रितु मैम ने आपका इतना वैल्यूएबल टाइम दिया है जो मुझे 10 मिनट का, क्योंकि आप लोगों के बिना हेल्प के हम लोग इस प्रोग्राम को सक्सेसफुली नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो मेरी सभी लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट है, क्योंकि सब लोग एजुकेशन से फील्ड से जुड़े हुए हैं, वेरियस हर कोई डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, कोई स्टेट में कहीं न कहीं डायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व है, कोई इनडायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व है। तो सभी लोगों से एक कोऑपरेटिव हमें कोऑपरेशन चाहिए आप लोगों का, जिससे कि हम इन सारे ही 4 के चारों प्रोग्राम्स को एक लार्ज स्केल में ले जा सकें। इसी रिक्वेस्ट के साथ में सभी लोगों से है कि आप लोग अपने-अपने डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, अपने-अपने स्कूल्स में, बहुत सारे मैंने देखा था कि मीटिंग से थोड़ा मैं पहले आ गया था, तो बहुत सारे प्रिंसिपल्स भी इसमें जुड़े हुए थे। तो स्पेशली क्योंकि हेड ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो होता है, उस पे काफ़ी कुछ रोल डिपेंड करता है। अगर उनकी इच्छा होगी, तो नीचे इम्प्लीमेंट होता है पॉलिसी, अगर नहीं है तो सभी ऑलमोस्ट सीनियर लोग हैं इसमें मीटिंग में। सभी से ये रिक्वेस्ट है कि प्लीज ये बहुत ही चारों के चारों प्रोग्राम बहुत अच्छे हैं, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के हैं, बहुत अच्छे प्रोग्राम हैं और ये आने वाले समय में आपको इनका रिजल्ट भी दिखेगा। वैसे तो रिजल्ट अभी कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स और दूसरे जो इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे हो रहे हैं उसमें आप लोग देख ही रहे हैं। ये लास्ट 5-6 साल 7 साल की मेहनत है स्पोर्ट्स अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया की। और इसमें अब क्योंकि ग्रास रूट लेवल पे चाहिए, तो हम लोगों को आपका बहुत हेल्प चाहिए, आप लोगों का बहुत सपोर्ट चाहिए, क्योंकि ग्रास रूट लेवल पे अगर डेवलप करना, स्किल करना है, तो आप लोगों के बिना सपोर्ट से नहीं हो पाएगा। तो मेरी यही रिक्वेस्ट है कि मैक्सिमम लोग जैसे फिट इंडिया क्विज में रजिस्ट्रेशन कराएं, जिससे कि आपके स्कूल का नाम हो, आपके टीचर्स का नाम हो, आपका भी नाम होगा, और जो बच्चा इन तीनों चीज़ों को लेके आएगा, आपको या आपके स्कूल को और आपको, तो वो बच्चा भी आपका ही होगा। तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि इन तीनों चीज़ों पे थोड़ा-सा आप लोग स्पेयर टाइम देके और इन लोगों को मोटिवेट करें अपने-अपने स्कूल्स में, जिससे कि ये 4 की चारों जो हमारी है ना, स्कीम्स को सक्सेसफुल बनाएँ। मैं इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ थैंक यू बोलूँगा, और स्पेशली डॉक्टर रितु चंद्रा मैम का, जो इन्होंने मुझे वैल्यूएबल टाइम दिया। मुझे मालूम है मैम, मैंने शायद 2-3 या 4 मिनट ज़्यादा ले लिए हैं। तो मैम इसी अपने इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ में मैं आप सभी लोगों से विदा चाहूँगा, और रिक्वेस्ट मेरी चलते-चलते यही है कि मैक्सिमम पार्टिसिपेशन आप लोग अपने यहाँ पे मोटिवेट करें अपने टीचर्स को, जिससे कि इन चारों स्कीम्स को एक काफ़ी लार्ज स्केल पे हम ले जा सकें, और ये बिना सपोर्ट के नहीं होगा।
जी, जी, थैंक यू। नहीं, आपने तो सही टाइम लिया एकदम। और वी आर आल्सो हैप्पी दैट यू कुड शेयर दीज थिंग्स, तो वी शुड रादर थैंकफुल टू यू कि आपने ये सारी चीज़ें शेयर की। एक रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे,
जी मैम।
एक तो जो भी आपने इसमें लिंक्स शो किए हैं, इसको चैट बॉक्स में पेस्ट कर दें, तो जितने भी
जी मैम।
पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, दे विल गेट अ क्विक लिंक। तो एक तो
जी,
ये।
जी मैम।
दूसरा चीज़ है, ये सारे लिंक का एक बंच बनाकर और एक डीओ लेटर आपका ज़रूर स्टेट्स में गया होगा, आप हाँ,
सब
मुझे
सब
भेज दीजिए। हमारा जो एमओई का ग्रुप है हम उसमें डाल देंगे, तो हमारे कंसल्टेंट्स के थ्रू इट कुड बी डिसैमिनेटेड टू ईच एंड एवरी स्टेट। तो ऐसे हम
ठीक है।
रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं कि आगे आपका फिट इंडिया का प्रोग्राम आगे बढ़ जाएगा एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री के थ्रू। तो ये दो काम तो हम आपके साथ कर सकते हैं। दूसरा, सिर्फ 1 मिनट के लिए, 1 मिनट का समय है। इफ एनीबडी हैज़ एनी क्वेरी, आई विल अनम्यूट यू। आप अपना हाथ रेज कर दीजिए कि कोई ऐसा स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन है वो पूछ लीजिए जो कि इसमें कवर नहीं किया गया है। किसी को कोई प्रश्न पूछना है? इफ यू वुड लाइक टू आस्क एनी क्वेश्चन, यू कैन आस्क। You have to raise your hand. We will unmute you. किसी को नहीं पूछना। ठीक है प्रदीप जी, इट वाज अ वंडरफुल सेट प्रेजेंटेशन। दैट्स आई मीन दैट मींस, तो आपने लिंक शेयर कर दी?
मैं अभी कर रहा हूँ मैम, लिंक
ठीक
शेयर
है,
कर रहा हूँ अभी आपको।
ठीक है, हम
ठीक
लोग
है।
अपना सेशन शुरू कर लेते हैं, तब
हाँ जी,
तक आप
प्लीज
लिंक
आप
शेयर
करिए, मैं
कर
अभी लिंक
दीजिएगा।
शेयर कर रहा हूँ आपसे।
ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
So now, Indrani ma'am, are you there? मैम है? हाँ, she's there. Ma'am, you are unmute now. So, participants, I would thank you so much for joining this program once again. This is the seventh day of the NIPUN Bharat program, exclusively designed for academic task force members and district task force member, but other stakeholders like teachers, state officials, parents, and community members have also joined. So we are grateful to you, and just because of the high viewership, other ministries are also requesting us to use this platform to disseminate their programs. So that's a good sign. Thank you so much again for this. Now I welcome Professor Indrani Bhaduri ma'am from NCRT, and she is right now a head of the Department of Educational Survey Division of NCRT, and she is also head of the National Achievement Survey. Everybody understands, everybody knows what is National Achievement Survey. This after every 3 years, this department, she checks the health of the implementation of all kinds of or interventions that we are giving in the education system, giving to the to our young children. I welcome you, ma'am. And now, because of the shortage of time, I think you have 1 hour 15 minutes. By 3:45, I request you to finish the session. And for the participants' information, I would like to inform you that today our Honorable EM is going to launch National Credit Framework. So if you don't know about what is National Credit Framework, just Google it and try to understand. And if you want, we are trying to get a link for you. This link is not going to help you. Don't join through this link. The program will start at 4 o'clock and it will go on till 5 o'clock. So those who are interested in National Credit Framework, they can watch the progress. You will share the link with your state officials and you can get it from them. So with this, I welcome ma'am. Now, I think you are on mute. Okay. Is it fine now? No, you can speak.
Yes. Thank you, Ritu, so much. And of course, the presentation before, uh, फिट रहेगा इंडिया तभी बढ़ेगा इंडिया और तभी बढ़ेगा इंडिया. So, keeping fit is essential. Uh, Ritu, I need the permission to share my presentation as well. I'm not able to share my presentation.
Now I request NIC to give ma'am authority to share her presentation. NIC, just wait for a minute.
I have given you the permission, ma'am. Imrani, ma'am.
You have given permission to ma'am?
Um, yeah, it is visible now.
Okay. Yes, so the presentation for this session is assessment of foundational learning and the impetus on school-based assessment. Next slide, please. So, whenever we are talking about assessment, or whenever all narratives concerning education in India is now woven around NEP 2020. NEP 2020 is the 21st century's first education policy in India. And keeping up with the times, it has been prepared keeping in mind the shift from rote memorization to the development of higher order thinking skills in the children, inculcation of values, and development of skills for self realization as well as building up resilience in the child. So, NEP 2020 has also given the pedagogical structure to the years of schooling. The first 5 years concerns the foundational, then comes the preparatory, the middle, and the secondary. Next slide, please. NEP 2020 has also stressed maximally on the importance of foundational learning, right from Balvatika to grade 3. And why grade 3? Because grade 3 is the point of inflection. till grade 3, the child learns to read, and it is only thereafter that the child reads to learn. So, the ability to read and write and perform basic operations with numbers is a necessary foundation and an indispensable prerequisite for all future schooling and lifelong learning. And therefore, the launch of National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy, that is the NIPUN Bharat mission. Not only in India but internationally also, the importance of foundational learning has been realized, and it is well documented in the Sustainable Development Goals as well. Next slide, please. So, when we are talking about foundational learning, it is the holistic development of the child that we are interested in. Nipun gives three developmental goals, that is, children maintaining good health and well being, children becoming effective communicators, and children becoming effective learners. Now, these goals are not to be taken in a compartmentalized manner, they are interwoven. It is only for the purpose of understanding of the teacher that these are the three main goals which needs to be looked at for the foundational stages. It has been labeled in this manner. So, engagement of the child with learning is important. And through all these goals, this engagement is what we need to uh, reach out to. Next slide, please. The Nipun has also given the Lakshya. So, what should be the Lakshya for the Balvatika, for the class 1, class 2, class 3? All have been documented. Next slide, please. So, why do we assess and how do we assess? First and foremost, assessment is done to recognize the child's strengths, needs, interest, and the preference. And once I know that, these are the strengths of the child and this is where the gap lies, I can plan out, I meaning I as a teacher can plan out the relevant interventions. So I need to have lot of cooperation, collaborations to resolve the issues and the areas of concerns. Early recognition of learning deficiencies as well as the difficulties will help to solve these gaps or to mitigate the learning gaps in a better manner. When we are talking about foundational learning, the assessment can be categorized into two main uh, domains. The first is the school based assessment. The school based assessment primarily is what the teacher does in the school, and the second is the large scale assessment. Now, the school based assessment and the large scale assessment, they have very different objectives, as well as because the objectives are different, the methodologies are also different. So when I'm talking about school based assessment, as a teacher I need to rely more on non standardized method. I am um, my main focus is to understand how each and every child in my classroom is developing, whether the child, what are the challenges that the child is meeting in realizing the learning outcomes. In the large scale assessment, I am not focused on the individual child. What I require in from the large scale surveys are how the systems are performing. So these systems can be how the district is performing, how the state is performing, and how the nation at large is performing. Next slide, please. Recently, we did a large scale study in foundational learning, and this was the first ever study done in the foundational stage in India, wherein we covered approximately 90,000 students. This assessment was a path breaker in many ways. This was the first one-on-one assessment of the students done at the foundational stage by the government of India, in which approximately 10,000 field investigators were used. Field investigators are the persons who actually administered the assessment task to the students, and because it was a one-on-one kind of a assessment, so the inter-rater reliability of the field investigators was of essence, and this was achieved through a dry run that was conducted to practice the test administration. So this foundational learning has been completed. The results are also out, and the website has been given on top. All of you can see. It is https double slash nipunbharat.education.gov.in slash fls slash rcard dot aspx. So you can go to this site and you can see your state report card. In detail, we have given the literacy component as well as the numeracy component. Now, like I said, these foundational learning studies are done to understand the system, that is, how the districts are performing, how the states is performing, and how the nation is performing. This does not tell us what is the progress of the individual child in the classroom. To understand that, we need to have the school-based assessment. Next slide. So when we go to the school-based assessment, these, like I said, that they are non-standardized tests. We are looking at uh, diversity, inclusivity, and the equity. Creating learning assessment, taking into account all three of these. So, the moment I say that I, as a teacher, I need to take into account the diversity in my classroom. I, as a teacher, need to be inclusive, meaning nobody in my classroom should feel that they are not involved or they cannot relate to the interactions in the classroom, or I am not able to reach out to the special needs, that is, I do not uh, give focus to the equity. So these three things, diversity, inclusivity, and equity in school-based assessment, is of prime importance. So and how do I take care of this? To take care of this, we contextualize the assessment process. Now, what do I understand by contextualizing the assessment process? Meaning, when I contextualize, I include the diversity, inclusivity, and equity, wherein I facilitate the access to the learning resources. The moment I say diversity, so I take the learning resources or the resources used in the assessment process from within the surroundings of the child. So, access to learning assessment resources is very important. The moment it is taken from the environment of the child is able to relate to the learning assessment situation and engagement in the learning assessment task. So the child is able to engage in a better manner in the learning assessment task. Again, there is a lot of focus on the use of technology But we need to keep in mind that the technology should be to enhance collaboration rather than marginalization. Again, development of assessment task is a specialized activity. Hence, what we need is a cadre of professional needs to be developed who can develop good assessment task for even for the classroom assessment. So, the foundational learning stage also stresses on the 21st century skills like the critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, cooperation, and effective communication. So, how these 21st century skills can be assessed in the classroom, we need to take care of that too. And most importantly, we need to make a paradigm shift from, instead of just relying on a score, usually what we are familiar with is a marks out of 25, 50, or 100. We need to shift our thinking from that score to describing what the child knows and can do. So this shift from score to describing statements which explains in detail. These describing statements will help, not only the child, the interaction with the child, what teacher does in the classroom, but beyond the classroom too, at home, in the community, for the parents to understand what is it that my child is learning, what is it that the child is challenged with, and how it can be overcome. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So whenever I'm saying that we need to make a shift from the score to the descriptors, which will be, no, the previous, yeah. So, in this case, the use of rubrics becomes very, very important and very, very relevant. A rubric defines in writing what is expected of the student to get in a particular grade and assignment. Next slide, please. The rubrics usually has three parameters. First, it has a criteria, second, a performance level, and the third, a descriptor. So if you can see that we have the criteria given, the performance level, and the descriptor. This is just an example that we have given, like in the division, that is the educational survey division, and at the national, we also conduct training program for the state level functionaries, wherein we go into the depth of how the learning task would be developed and how the corresponding rubrics will be developed, because these are a very elaborate training program that we conduct with the state functionaries. Next slide, please. So the approach during the foundational year, approach to pedagogy as well as to assessment in specific, has to be holistic. During my initial slides itself, I've shown you that the three goals that the foundational learning is focusing on. So we need to take into account all the three goals. And the second important thing is that it has to be playway. So with this, I give the presentation to Dr. Kavita, who will be taking it forward.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Kavita. I hope I am audible to everyone. Can someone just respond so that I understand that I am being heard properly?
Sorry, ma'am. Are you asking something?
All right, all right. All right, thank you so much. So, thank you so much, Mimanji. Thank you, everyone. See, till now, Indrani ma'am gave us an elaborate view of the important points, the core ideas that Nipun Bharat talks about, and the kind of paradigm shift which is being described in the document. And it's quite important that all of us have a very extensive and in-depth understanding of the same. So, in the slides that follow, in this section of the presentation, there'll be three important aspects of Nipun Bharat's vision that we are going to emphasize upon. And we'll just highlight the core aspects around these three areas. One is going to be the approach and the tools that may be used to assess foundational learning at the foundational stage, and also to understand that how these tools, these approaches are more apt for the learners, for the young learners. Second is an interrelated aspect, that once we have assessed the children, what is the best way of reporting that assessment, what is the best way of sharing those insights with other stakeholders, maybe parents, maybe community at large, and yes, with the child also. The third aspect of this presentation is going to touch upon a very important dimension, that how teachers can also be the creators of knowledge. So they need not always look at the resources, rather how can they themselves theorize their own practice. So with this, I will just focus on the aspect of the approaches and the tools to assess foundational learning. All right. So the tools and techniques for school-based assessment need to be this needs to be immersive, this needs to be quite engaging experiences for the child. So assessment needs to be conceptualized in far broader a way, as compared to the practices that in general are being carried out in the classrooms. So all kinds of assessment, be it self-assessment, and I will try and give examples of these techniques as we move on in the presentation, be it peer assessment, portfolio making, which is a very vast repository of children's work. So authentic assessments, anecdotal records, something that has been captured in quite a moment when the child is showcasing his or her own learning, checklist interactions, all these needs to be used in an effective manner when you are assessing the child. This the second point, that assessment needs to be stress free, it has to be interwoven in the system of teaching learning. This applies to almost all these stages of schooling, but more so for the foundational stage, because here the child is also vicariously learning about what assessment is. And just to help, just to ensure that the child is not developing notions, not so welcoming notions of the assessment in the longer run. So from that perspective as well, the foundational learning, the last point, is the assessment at this stage And again, I would say it's a generalized point. It applies to all other stages of schooling and assessment, linked to those stages. That assessment, very important aspect of assessment is to help the child, is to support the development of the child in various domains. So it is not just a number that has to be reported somewhere. It's not just linked. It need not be linked just with accountability of the teachers for the learning of the children, but also that how far you have helped the child to develop in a multifarious way. Now, this slide somehow sums up the points that have been written in the previous slide itself. Ma'am talked about rubric based assessment too, that how rubrics can help us, can explain the visualization of child's learning, not only for the teacher but also for the say for the parents, that when we are focusing on a particular aspect, how exactly the learning will progress for that particular concept. So and then yes, developing portfolio as well. And ultimately the last point, that all of this is done, what is the point of enhancing the assessment approaches and implementing them, until and unless you are making use of the outcomes of that assessment to further the achievement of learning outcomes. So that is the ultimate goal. Now, as ma'am also highlighted that NIPUN Bharat and NEP, and not only NEP and NIPUN Bharat, otherwise also, we understand that the development of the child is needs to be encouraged in all the domains. So whether it is linguistic ability of the child, the ability to express, become effective communicator, the ability to start understanding that how numbers make sense, or other mathematical concepts make sense in the larger world, how exactly the child needs to start engaging with the environment. And also how will the child, very importantly, start understanding his or her own body, both in terms of the subtle aspects, say one's emotions, or more concrete aspects, the ability of our limbs to perform a certain function. So all of this need to be a part of the bigger picture of the development of the child. Nipun Bharat has done it, has really provided a very a comprehensive picture of how how these three dimensions of a child's development needs to be focused upon. So what you see on my screen right now is the competencies which Nipun Bharat describes, that needs to be focused, the core competencies that needs to be focused during the first 4 5 years of schooling, and thereon you need to build upon them. So all these aspects are important, like whether the child is developing a positive self concept and a pro-social behavior, the development of motor skills, both gross motor skill as well as fine motor skills, and then child's ability to coordinate and cordially play with the members of the team, or to carry just perform a particular task. So these are the competencies for the aspect related to well-being and general health of the child. Now I'll just give you certain examples of, so what Nipun Bharat, what I'm sure you all must have read the document in depth, and you all have a good understanding of what the document tries to say. So there is a component that is highlighted in the document that talks about different kinds of assessments which are applicable. So school based assessment to understand the child and to support the child, also large scale assessments to understand the system at large. So school based assessments, and then the key competencies which needs to be focused at different stages for different domains as well. How do you combine the both? The examples that I'm going to give you right now will give you a little glimpses of how this can be done. And I'm sure once I give one example, you all already have, numerous other examples in your mind, or maybe in application you're doing it already. So once we say that, self-awareness, say if I as a teacher of young learners would like to assess this particular dimension of self-awareness, I need not, I need not just design a particular exam, or so to say a test, to say whether my children know about self awareness or not. This can very well be interwoven in my day to day teaching. And one, this can then be combined, that once say I have completed this theme or this chapter of self awareness, and I know that I've given enough experiences to the child, then I may design an interactive activity to see where the children, what their achievement level is, what their level of exhibiting this particular skill is. So maybe, as the example shows here, maybe I'll just use few stick puppets, or locally available material may be used to make certain visually engaging props with which you start assessing the child also. So maybe I'm introducing a character, saying that so and so is the name of the character, and then prompting the children that you can you tell me your name. And if I'm doing this in the background, in my if I as a teacher know that I'm doing this to assess the child, then thoroughly keeping a record, that all right, so and so child was able to respond to the questions, or maybe I'm doing this in a small group setting. So this is just an example to show you that when we are talking about, say, self-awareness, the child's ability to speak about himself, herself, not only in terms of what's my name, what's my father's names, mother's names, and all of that, but also, what do I look like? So, what's the color of my hair? And then going beyond those aspects, and including dimensions which are which also include aspects which are not very directly related to the child, but will still fall into the ambit of self expression and self awareness. uh, Now, just to add on, let me give one more example here. When we are talking about health and well being, also imagine that there is a teacher who has developed, who wants to understand that how well the children have developed the gross motor skills and the fine motor skills. And the teacher, say, designs a particular game in which there are segments in which the teacher is expecting the children to say walk, run, exhibit zigzag way of running. Maybe the teacher uses empty tires or certain ropes to see whether the children are able to hop in and hop off. Maybe using some elasticated material and tying it at two ends, and see how well the children can jump. So an integrated activity in which the teacher will get to see not only that how well the children are exhibiting their gross motor skills, but also how well they are interacting with each other. So also the pro-social behavior and the self-regulation of the child. If they are standing in a line, how exactly the child is exhibiting his or her behavior. So one activity through which the teacher can tap into multiple aspects, as we were talking about the competencies, if you see here. Next, let's see what is the foundational, what are the key competencies associated with foundational literacy. Now, this section is also taken from NIPUN Bharat. So here we know that foundational literacy is not just reading and writing, It's writing with purpose, which is very important for the child to realize that I'm writing for a purpose. There's a sense of audience when the small child is writing. Also, when we talk about foundational literacy, and given the aspect of multilingual, nature of our classrooms, also giving the space to the mother tongue of the child. So it's mother tongue oriented education now, but what if there are more than one mother tongues in the classroom, more than one home language? Children who have that vocabulary, the teacher also needs to be sensitive to that. So all of this needs to be captured, and how all of this can be assessed. Let me just start with that. So, as you see in the first column, it says listening with comprehension. If I am a teacher of, say, class 2 students, class 1 students, how will I do it? Do I bring a text to the child which is, which the child is not able to relate with? Maybe it's an alienated piece of text, and start asking the question on the basis of that task? Or as a teacher, I make it engaging. For example, there are certain riddles about some seasonally available fruits and vegetables. I share those riddles with the children. I speak clearly with intonation, and then I ask my children that, all right, rather than jumping directly to the answer, what the answer of this riddle is, you tell me what are the hints I'm giving in this particular riddle to all of you. ऑल राइट, चिल्ड्रन में से इट्स द कलर ऑफ द वेजिटेबल दैट यू टॉकिंग अबाउट. आप रंग की बात कर रहे हो, वो लाल रंग की वेजिटेबल है. आप शेप की बात कर रहे हो, वो गोल वेजिटेबल है, सब्जी है. So this is how assessment needs to be engaging, needs to be an immersive experience for the child. Or for example, let's go to the second column that talks about pretend reading. uh, we all understand that before the stage of reading comes the stage of pretend reading, wherein the child may not be decoding the words, but is reading, is pretending and reading. So, and when in the next section we'll be talking about holistic progress cards, that how we are, informing the parents and others about the progress of the child, learning achievement of the child. There, you can also make a remark that the child is very actively engaging in pretend reading, and take it in a positive sense, that once the child is engaging with reading, in this manner, the child is progressing towards reading. And as I was talking about writing with purpose, um, always giving those, even in assessment, giving those kind of tasks to the child that motivates the child to write. So I probably will be motivated if I have seen, say, a particular bird outside my classroom. I may or may not know the name, but the teacher asks that, जस्ट राइट समथिंग अबाउट दैट बर्ड. उस पक्षी के बारे में कुछ लिखिए, ताकि हम अपने जो बाकी क्लास के बच्चे हैं उन्हें बताना चाहते हैं. मे बी बाय द टाइम द बर्ड विल फ्लाई ऑफ, लेट्स जस्ट राइट समथिंग. सो इट assessment will be interwoven and will be dynamic at the same time. Next is the so this is just an example again from foundational literacy, that maybe I'm a teacher, and I want the children to I'm just reading aloud a poem, or I'm singing a song, and I want my child to showcase their understanding of rhyming words. What do I do? Again, it's important, as ma'am was talking about, making it contextual, the content that the children are able to relate with, जिसमें एक मेलोडी है, एक रिदम है, बच्चा कनेक्ट कर सकता है, ऐसा कंटेंट आप क्लास में लेकर आएंगे, तो एटलीस्ट जो एलियनेशन की प्रॉब्लम होती है कि बच्चे को पता है बट बच्चा आंसर नहीं कर पा रहा है, वो प्रॉब्लम खत्म होगी. So for example, something like this, a poem like this has been taken from class to NCRT maths textbook. This is a poem given in the maths textbook. So, खूब बड़ी गाजर, uh, इस तरीके के अगर गानों को, पोम्स को हम क्लास में लेकर आते हैं, बच्चों के साथ मिलकर गाते हैं, वी engage them, and then let's go to the concept that the teacher otherwise is trying to assess कि राइमिंग वर्ड्स क्या हैं। अगर मैंने झोला बोला या मैं हाय बोल रही हूँ, तो बच्चों से ही पूछना कि हम, अब मैं बोलने वाली हूँ गाजर के हलवे को, कौन सा वर्ड इसे कंप्लीट कर सकता है, हम खाएं या लाएं या बनाएं। सो अगेन there could be a scope of multiple answers as well, not just hooking on to one answer for that matter. This is the key competencies for foundational numeracy, and the third goal of NIPUN Bharat that talks about children becoming involved learners focuses on both the dimensions of learning, numeracy as well as environmental sensitivity. So in numbers, again, it's very important when we are teaching the child to count, or when we are assessing child's ability to count, also focusing on pre-number concepts, that as a teacher, does my child know one-to-one correspondence, do they know seriation? So assessment in a way that is also thoroughly informed by the progression of concepts, especially in maths. So this is again an example in which if the teacher is assessing child's the concept of positional terms, this may not be done just through a paper and pen test that I've given, may be done, but again it will add to the quality of assessment and engagement of the child if you do it through an activity. Because if it is activity based pedagogy, it can very well be activity based assessment as well. So again, an immersive experience in which, say, if I am a child, my teacher gives me an object and asks me that you place it towards your right, towards your left, keep it on the top of your bag, on the top of your bottle, near the window. So, and making maximum use of the space which is available to the teacher, making maximum use of the resources which is available to the teacher. So from here, there is a direct link to the holistic progress cards.
So now we look at the holistic progress card. So what is this, holistic progress card that we are talking about? NEP 2020 talks about that the assessment needs to be holistic. It has to be 360-degree and a multi-dimensional report, progress report. So there is a shift from report card to progress card. So this is very important. That is what we have been saying right from the beginning, that we do not want one particular score to define the child. So to understand what the child knows and can do, what we require to give are the descriptors. So the moment I give descriptors, it is not only understandable by me, but by the parents as well. And when we are talking about a holistic progress card, it is not just the teacher assessing the child, but we need to involve peer assessment. We need to have self assessment, and not just the cognitive assessment, but the affective, psychomotor, all the domains needs to be assessed. And many a times when we have when we go to the schools and interact with the teacher, we come and the teachers come and tell us that ये बच्चा इस बच्चे को तो पढ़ने में बिल्कुल इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, वो पढ़ना ही नहीं चाहता. So I as a teacher, I need to understand बच्चा क्यों नहीं पढ़ना चाहता. So we say that बच्चा इसलिए नहीं पढ़ना चाहता that उसको सही बुक मिला, पढ़ने के लिए. So what is important for us all as teachers, to understand that there should not be just one book, there should not be just one tool for assessment, there should not be just one approach to assessment. We need to have a plethora of approaches, a, a gamut of tools need to be used, and we need to give that choice to the child. I, as a child, I need to understand that this is the book if that I want to read, and this will happen when I have many books in front of me. Just one book will not help me to decide that. So the choice that needs to be given to the child is very important. So when we are also talking about holistic progress card, we are here telling about, that how the child is, at the beginners level, at the or the child is progressing, and the child is at the proficient level. So if the child is at the beginners level, what kind of activities I, as a teacher, need to give to the child to support his or her learning? So and if a child is not understanding through a particular manner, then how I can change that, the transaction mode, for the child to understand, to improve his or her understanding. So the assessment approaches needs to be varied. Again, I cannot just give all just a visual, maybe assessment. So it can be visual, it can be auditory, it can be kinesthetics. So the entire the different ranges needs to be understood, and the different varieties needs to be given. The It is very important during the foundational learning to involve the parents, also to understand the progress of the child, because without the participation of the parent, the this the progress of the child, or the proper. And when I'm talking about parent, it is the caregiver of the child that needs to be given understanding about how the child is progressing. Yeah, next slide. Next slide. Let